This conference will now be recorded.
Do we have the mayor?
Yes, you have the mayor.
Oh, yay. Okay.
I can't see the mayor very well. We talked about putting a camera here and on my screen so you can see. You see me. If you look really hard, I have my mask on and it says vote.
Oh, okay.
Underneath it says,
Mayor,
but not. No,
there's
underneath, you can't see it. Underneath it says, but not for no confidence. That was, it was going to be extra. I had to write it in a Sharpie right there. So anyway, I'll share those around. So. Okay, so, but I think we're all here. I do welcome Wendy, and she put everybody in a good mood for their banter back and forth. So welcome Wendy and all the other guests we have today. So we will call this meeting to order of the Woodburn City Council agenda, October 12th, 2020, and we will now have the flag salute. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, may we please have the roll call?
Councillor Cabrales?
Here.
Councillor Elfworth?
Here.
Councillor Carney?
Here.
Councillor Schaub?
Here.
Councillor Cornwell?
Here.
Councillor Morris?
I'm here.
Mayor Swenson?
Here. Okay, we have just one announcement that City Hall and the library will be closed on November 11th in observance of Veterans Day. And we do have a proclamation to read. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The proclamation reads, whereas the impact of domestic violence extends beyond individuals reaching into families and communities. And whereas in the last year, Marion County has experienced 3 domestic violence homicide crimes resulting in the deaths of 4 victims. And whereas the Marion County District Attorney's Office received 1,126 law enforcement reports of domestic violence last year and filed 989 domestic violence cases. And whereas the Marion County courts received 1,128 requests for protective orders last year, whereas the Center for Hope and Safety received 33,189 contacts to their program in the past year and provided 4,855 nights of shelter. And whereas the Marion County Victim Assistance Division provided 20,737 victim services and assisted 1,728 victims of domestic violence last year, walking alongside them and giving them a voice in the criminal justice process. And whereas we know as individuals we can make a difference by speaking up and reaching out to help victims and survivors, now therefore the mayor for the city of Woodburn proclaims October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and resolves to honor those who have died and acknowledge those who have survived by supporting meaningful and accessible services that create safety and hope for survivors in this community. Okay, and I would also like to remind us that that today is while the part of the country celebrates Columbus Day and part of it Indigenous Peoples Day, that Councillor Cabrales, I believe in her first meeting last year, reminded us that this is Indigenous Peoples Day and that we maybe for next year want to prepare a declaration of that. To date, 14 states, Alabama, Alaska, Hawaii, Idaho, Maine, Michigan, Minnesota, New Mexico, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Oregon, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wisconsin, and the District of Columbia, and more than 130 cities and a growing number of school districts celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day in place of or in addition to Columbus Day.
Okay.
Okay, we will, is there any business from the public? No one signed up. Okay, we'll move to item 8, the consent agenda. May we have the city recorder please read the items aloud that are on the consent calendar.
The items on the consent agenda are as follows. Woodburn City Council minutes of September 14th, 2020. Acceptance of a statutory warranty deed for right-of-way dedication and 2 public utility easements at 1220 5th Street, Woodburn, Oregon 97071. Leasing Specialist LLC contract award. liquor license application Metropolis LLC, crime statistics through August 2020, and building activity for September 2020.
All right, does any counselor have a question or would like to request one of the items be removed from the consent calendar? Counselor Morris.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just had a question for the chief or for Scott. When was the last time the city council did not take a position or the police department didn't take a position on a liquor license? Because it seems like that's unprecedented in the time that I've been around, but I may have missed something. So
I'm happy to take a stab at that, Counselor and Mayor. Jim Ferreira, your police chief. I'm not aware of when the last time was, but there's a reason for the neutral position on this one, if you'd like me to explain that.
yeah, I think that'd be great, chief. Thank you.
So as you know, that particular business had some bumps in the road as far as the governor's executive orders with relation to a wake that took place at the business some months ago. And for a variety of reasons that are so bureaucratic with OLCC, I won't even try to explain it to you because I really don't understand it. The OLCC is not taking into account any of the negative information about the applicant or the business. And they already had granted a temporary license, and they're indicating to us that they're going to go ahead and grant the license. So it's kind of up in the air on what they're going to do. I think they're going to grant it. And the police department felt the best course was just to take a no recommendation, not in favor, not against, and the OLCC holds all the cards.
Counselor, I'll chime in as well. I don't have a recollection of ever taking a neutral position on a liquor license, at least in my tenure with Woodburn. But Chief and I did talk it through, and given the LOCC's disposition on this particular establishment in the past, we thought a neutral position would make sense.
Yeah, okay. I guess I'm just struggling because normally, and I know it's a rubber stamp for OLCC, but I think it kind of sets a precedent that if we have people who come up with issues in their application process and we say, yeah, we don't feel strongly either way. I think we do feel strongly, it seems like to me, but I'm not going to beat a dead horse over it. I'm just concerned about that kind of thing. So I'll leave it at that.
Any other questions about any of the items? Okay, with that, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as stated.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move to general business. We have a workshop with utility service ordinance and resolution setting ROW, utility license and usage fee rates. Take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, city councilors. Mackenzie Granum, your assistant city attorney here. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to reintroduce Reba Crocker. She's here as well this evening, and from Right of Way Consultants. And we're here returning on the item of the utility service ordinance and the correlating resolution setting right of way utility and usage fee rates. And at the previous city council meeting, we had presented both an ordinance and resolution for your adoption. And based off of the comments from the council, we're returning tonight with a work session that does include a presentation by Reba and myself. And as you all have seen through go-to meeting this evening, Wendy Valise from PGE is also here and would like to speak after our presentation. So there'll be time available for her to speak on behalf of PGE. So with that, I believe Reba is in presentation mode and is going to put a presentation on your screen.
Well, hello, everybody. Let me see if I can figure out how to share and show. All right. So yeah, last time we talked, and there was some questions on council And I wanted to just address those questions and provide some more information on the right-of-way code. And this presentation is rather long, so if you do have questions, feel free to stop me or interrupt me and ask questions, and we can stop and discuss this particular item in the presentation. Really quick, just this is a map of the city's rights-of-way, and it's arguably the city's largest assets. The question, a big question came up last time about small cell facilities and whether or not they use the right-of-way. So I went to the internet and I pulled some slides from the internet. These slides are from Crown Castle. Crown Castle is not a service provider. They only provide the facilities that the service providers use. Some of these may be on the city's right-of-way, some of them may be on private property. But I did want to point out, I added the red arrows on the bottom. I don't know if you can see those, that the macro cells and other cells use fiber in the ground. Additionally, small cells do the same thing. So this fiber could be underneath the ground, that could be attached to utility poles. But if they weren't using leasing capacity on that fiber to make their connection, wireless wouldn't work. So they are in fact using the facilities to earn a profit by using the facilities in the right of way. I also wanted to address a couple of case laws and some legalities. I'm sure you guys are familiar with home rule authority and the fact that you're a home rule city. So unless you're expressly preempted, you can do this as long as it's on a competitively neutral and non-discriminatory basis. And that's per the US Code 253 section C, and it is. The Oregon Revised Statute also gives you the authority expressly to include a privilege tax or usage tax on these carriers. And that was upheld in Key West versus Portland. That ORS further continues and says that you have the right to charge them up to 7% of their gross revenue. We've got some federal laws. There's the Mobile Telecom Sourcing Act, which specifically states that no matter where a call originates or terminates, if it's billed within your city, you have the jurisdiction to impose a fee on that service. There is the small cell order. There's been a lot of attention drawn to this lately, and most of the feedback we received cited this order. The order is accelerating broadband deployment by removing barriers to infrastructure investment. I did include a link to the order. This order is specific to small cells technology. You cannot apply this order to other telecom, to cable, to gas, to electric. The order is very specific, and that was affirmed in Portland versus the FCC recently. This order also provides you with what the FCC determines is a safe harbor amount to charge for small cells. And that is exactly what is proposed in the fee schedule. It's the $500 and then $270 per year. So you're completely within the FCC regulations at that point. You also had some questions about what other cities were charging. Am I going too fast?
You're good.
Okay. So I compiled the other cities and what they're doing. And typically, as you can see, well, they charge the gross revenue and the linear footage. And I want to be clear on this. A company would pay either the gross revenue or the linear footage. They wouldn't pay both. If a company is earning a profit by using the right of way, they would pay on gross revenue. If they're not turning a profit and they're just using the right of way, for example, to connect a signal through your city, then they would pay the gross revenue or linear footage. So they wouldn't pay both. It's one or the other. And typically cities, they range from 5 to 7% on what they charge for gross revenue. Linear footage charges range from $2.50 to Corvallis is over $15 a foot for a 12-inch conduit. Most of the cities will have an escalator So not on the gross revenue, but on linear footage. So that's why you get the funky, like Salem, $4.08 per foot or $7,117 per attachment, because typically the escalator is like 3% per year, those fees go up. Some other cities that haven't made the switch yet are around you, and those cities generally have those franchise agreements. Franchise agreements are usually at 7%. So this is just a more efficient way to do it by implementing the code. However, I do want to note that cable providers are not the same as telecommunication providers according to the FCC, and that is capped at 5% of gross revenue. We also talked about, and there was some concern about what was going to be charged to the end user, your consumers. So I compiled this little chart to show what's going to change for the providers and for the consumers. The only thing that's really going to change is that providers who don't own facilities but serve your city will have to pay the exact same amount as those that own facilities. Some of that cost could be passed on to the end user, as the FCC tells them they can. So really not a lot's going to change. For example, Northwest Natural and PGE, there's going to be no change to the end user. Cable is going to remain the same, and your facility providers are going to be the same. This will just make your non-facility owners the same requirements as your facility owners. So your facility owners are those companies that actually own the facilities in the ground that they use. For example, Wave.
Sorry, Counselor has a question, I believe. Counselor Carney has a question.
Can you your previous slide?
Sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I read this chart, let's just take an example of it. Cable, wave, broadband, franchise fee, 5% of gross revenue, proposed continuing at 5%, and end user, 5%. So my reading of the word end user means the person who owns the television set that receives the wave cable signal. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So correct me again if I'm wrong. The city is charging Wave 5% of its gross revenue for its cable service. And then Wave is charging the end user 5% of their particular monthly bill.
Correct.
Okay. Tell me, I'm confused. This sounds to me like a tax.
It is sort of like a tax, but it is a charge for using the public's property. They are using, yeah. So cable has been franchised at 5% for years and years and years, and nothing in this code is going to change that at all. Cable providers will continue to be franchised. They cannot go underneath the code. They are not a telecommunication service. They're under a different section. Yeah.
I understand that, Rita, but you know, we're going through this process, and the way I read this chart, it sounds to me like the people that use Wave cable in Woodburn are going to be covering the fee that the cable company pays to the city of Woodburn.
They currently do, yes.
I'm saying, if I read this correctly, they're currently paying that fee.
Yes.
Okay. So
there's no net increase at this level for the Wave. They're already paying the hidden tax, so to speak.
That's right. But if we go ahead and we start putting 7% in on other people, Lightspeed, Zavo, Datavision, people like that. Datavision's the telephone company. if we start putting an additional 7% in there, what that tells me is that the companies that are paying that 7% to the city are now going to be able to pass that 7% off to the individual user of that service. So the company gets the money back from the user.
So
It's a circular thing.
Yeah, but Data Vision and Wave and those people are already doing that, is what I understand. Although, okay. So the
Right.
people, so if I have Data Vision or Wave or one of those or PGE, my bill is not going to go up because of this proposal. However, if I subscribe to a small cell, say a small cell wireless company, those companies will now have to pay a fee that they weren't paying in the past. And in all likelihood, if I use that provider, they are going to pass that cost on to me.
I need to interrupt really quick. Small cell wireless providers will not be charged percentage of gross revenue because of the order. They are charged $270 per year per cell site, and it is unknown at this point if they are going to pass that on to the consumer or not. I haven't seen them do that, but that doesn't mean they don't have the right to. All providers have the right to pass on costs. They can also pass on the cost of their break room supplies and certain salaries. It's whether or not the company chooses to pass that fee on. But small
Right.
cells,
So
small cells don't really send you a bill for their small cells. They send you a bill for their services. So for example, Sprint Wireless is listed in the bottom as a non-facility owner. They're a wireless provider. They attach a cell and they use those facilities in the ground, and you can charge them 7% and they will probably pass that on to the end user. But if that same provider puts up a small cell in your city, you can no longer charge them 7% and they can no longer pass that on to the consumer. I know that was a lot of information really quick. I'm sorry.
Yep. So help us with, we're still working through the math just because people are going to be concerned. So if I'm a small cell provider, the most I'm going to get charged is $270 a year. So in a city of the size of Woodburn, if that small cell company has 1,000 people, that's 270 divided by 1,000 divided by 12 months. We're talking about whether or not they're going to add a couple pennies to the service.
Correct.
Mariko, what is the definition of a non-facility owner?
I'm going to get to that in the next slide.
Very good.
Really quick, I have a question before we continue. The end user percentage, is that the cap or how high can it go up to?
Well, that is what's proposed. So your end user, there's a lot of other fees that are passed along by these providers too. I mean, we've all seen our bill and it itemizes all these fees on there. So in addition to their service, they charge you for this and this and this. But as far as what the city charges the providers that can be passed on to the residents, we are proposing a 7% of gross revenue, which is what your franchises are currently at. So there's no change in those facility owners. We're proposing a 7% to all of the other providers, and that will probably be passed along to your end users. Did I understand your question correctly?
Yes, thank you for that.
Can I ask this a quick question? Okay, so it is complicated, and I'm not an expert in this field, which is why we have you here. But so would it be fair to say that the companies that aren't, if we don't levy this 7% on companies that currently aren't providing, are currently not paying the service, but profiting from their presence in our community, they could still charge rates as though they were being charge, the 7%, to be competitive with the competition that has to pay that fee. So basically, it's profitable for them because it's not a level playing field from a competitive standpoint. So to think that there's no downward pressure competition to provide if one company is paying the franchise and the other isn't, that is charging like they would to be in the market. Do I understand? Is that a reasonable understanding?
It absolutely is. By charging one provider and not charging the other one, you're creating an unequal playing field. So the people that own facilities are at a disadvantage. And you're supposed to treat everybody the same and provide an equal and level playing field, and you're not. Because
and then ultimately, the members of the community then benefit from these revenues and the services that we provide in the general fund. It becomes a bit of a hidden subsidy then for those companies from our community members. Is that to those companies?
Absolutely. The facility owners are unfairly supporting the non-facility owners, and it's the non-facility owners are not paying their fair share. So not only do they get an unfair advantage, but to manage them, the city has to put out funds that taxpayers pay anyway to manage this when they're the ones causing the issue.
May I offer an alternative opinion?
Certainly.
The other side of this is that what this council can do is assiduously work to remove these franchise fees from the customers that are in the same, from the suppliers that are in the same field, thereby leveling the playing field and also providing our residents with a lower cost of operation in their monthly bill. Just a thought.
I think you definitely could do that. You could eliminate franchise fees altogether. It's definitely an option that you could choose.
Well, I might just add as the budget officer for the city that would open up a significant general fund problem for us. You know, we would have to reduce levels of services quite a bit. That's franchise fees are next to property taxes are our single largest financial resource for the community that provides, you know, all of our general fund services.
And we have to still maintain the right of way. If the people who are utilizing the right of way don't pay us, we still have to maintain the right of ways.
And I would say that it's the right of way is actually the public's property, and the people are using it to earn a profit. So if you are not getting compensation for the use of the public's property, basically what you're doing is you're giving away use of the public's property for free. And I don't know if that's...
I don't think we're meeting our fiduciary responsibility if we're doing that.
Scott, am I reading it right that we're budgeting about $1.2 million in franchise fee for the budget?
Yeah, it is 1.2 million with another 600,000 for right of way, 650,000, something like that. So, the companies would certainly like you to reduce those fees. It would improve their bottom lines, but it would also create a problem for our general fund programming.
Yeah, I fully realize that, but you know, the other side of this coin is that we should only be charging franchise fees to the extent that it covers administration and maintenance of those facilities. You're implying that we're charging those franchise fees and using them for other purposes.
I think that's correct. So that would be like saying I have a house and I can only rent it for what I'm paying the bank. I can't make a profit. And the city makes a little bit of a profit on our land. It seems like a very simple question, but there's a lot of complexity in here.
When on those small cells, by taking the safe harbor approach, you're going to lose money on that. When those applications come in, there's shots, clocks, and everything else, you're going to lose money on that portion of it. Absolutely. There's a lot of cities that are charging over $1,000 for small cell sites because they've done the cost studies, which are really expensive to do to determine how much it actually costs the city in just costs. If you take everything into account, I don't think it's as big a profit as it appears.
Thank you. I'm finished with my questions.
Any more? I know it's a lot.
Not yet, but they're coming.
Okay, I'll be ready. So let's talk about facility owners and non-facility owners. So your facility owners are the ones that actually own facilities. They may or may not provide services to your residents, but they actually own the equipment in your city. PGE obviously owns their own equipment, Lightspeed, DataVision, Wave, Northwest Natural. Then you've got non-facility owners. So for example, you can have a company that, and I know of quite a few of them actually, that they have a facility owner named ABC Company. Then they open up another company to provide wireless services. If you're not charging a linear foot, that company that owns facilities is not providing any services within your city. So they're not paying for use of that right of way. This company doesn't own any facilities, but they're making a profit. They don't owe you anything because they don't own anything in the ground. They're using their sister company. So that's why you want to make sure that you treat everybody the same. The non-facility owners are basically your wireless providers. For example, Comcast Wireless rides on Verizon's network. Comcast Wireless doesn't own any facilities. Now, Comcast Cable would own facilities if they were active in your city. T-Mobile and Sprint are about to merge. AT&T has several different companies. They have AT&T, Teleport, Cricket, SBC Long Distance. All those other little companies don't own facilities, but they're using the facilities owned by AT&T Big Corporation to earn a profit. You also have your resellers. Cricket is a reseller. Consumer Cellular, they're getting more and more popular. They don't own anything in your city, but they use those facilities. They use those through wholesale agreements like we talked about in those first slides. They lease capacity from those facility owners. So they are also using that property to make a profit in your city. So you need to charge them a usage fee for using that property. By charging at both of those groups, you're creating more of a level playing field. Questions about facility owners and non-facility owners?
I have a question. So, for example, with Wave, like if you're getting internet from them and you are renting their products, and then all of a sudden you decide to buy your own and you no longer rent them, you're still getting charged that fee, correct?
The Wave franchise currently is for, okay, so this is going to be a little bit deeper than I actually wanted to go. So Wave actually has a cable franchise with you right now. There is the cable order that the FCC adopted that says if a cable company provides cable services in your city, if they're providing any other services, you cannot impose a fee upon them. So the only fee that Wave is imposing upon the residents of Woodburn is 5% of cable services. The city is not imposing any fees on any internet services or other services provided over a cable system by a cable operator. So does that confuse your question?
No,
okay.
it answers it. Thank you.
Okay, so then there's a couple of pros and cons to the system, and we've talked about a couple of these already. the main thing is that you will create an equal and level playing field. But the end user may be charged because under the current FCC, those companies have the choice. I want to stress that. Those companies are not required to pass this fee on. They make that choice. There will be reduced cost to the city in labor and staff time. And also this code, adopting an ordinance this way, allows you to be more flexible as technology moves, and it's moving really fast. Up front, there's a little bit of time to develop all the forms, process everything, get everything in place, get everybody to comply. We might have to take a little enforcement action on a couple people. I haven't seen too many cities that had to do enforcement action. I personally have only been involved in one city that had to do enforcement action. Usually it's just a lot of back and forth. Also, the ordinance allows you, and I know Wendy's going to talk about this too, and I've talked about this, and every time I make this presentation, the code allows you the flexibility to do other agreements should the public interest warrant in another agreement. For example, it's difficult to apply this code to Northwest Natural and PGE because they're not telecom. But PGE and Northwest Natural have unique needs. So we can, you would, in 2020, well, you definitely would have to add special sections for them, or the code allows you to enter into a franchise with them. I know a city with a code that did just do a franchise. Tualatin did a franchise with PGE instead of writing additional sections to the code. So there's some pros and cons on both sides. I did specifically want to talk about the comments from industry and address those. First of all, wireless policy group for Verizon Wireless and New Singular, which is part of AT&T. As we now know, they incorrectly applied that FCC order and stated that all fees have to be actual cost when that only applies to small cells. And the fees that are being proposed are in line with the safe harbor fees that the FCC allows. They also stated that they did not use the right-of-way. I actually had a conversation with Verizon where they admitted that they are wholesale customers of fiber owners. They know that they lease capacity. Just because they don't own those facilities doesn't mean they don't use the right-of-way. They also didn't like the attachment fee. Whether or not that physical piece of equipment is attached to somebody else's pole, or they put up a new pole, it's still taking up space in the right-of-way, and the public deserves compensation or rent, if you will, for using that space. The city also has to manage that. The city has to be responsible for that. There are costs involved with that. There is no, as they state, no additional costs. And they also wanted a definition of an attachment. You guys, technology is moving so fast and rapid in this area, and every provider has different facilities, different size, shape, auxiliary equipment. To get a definition in writing, it would change the moment you adopted it. So to remain current, attachment would just have the ordinary meaning, just that it's attached. Verizon Wireless focused on a couple of things in the code and to make their point, but didn't apply all of the code, because one of the intents is fair and reasonable compensation for use of the right-of-way, which is what this code achieves, ordinance achieves, I'm sorry. And they're opposed for facilities being installed. I think we just talked about that they take up space. New Singular also went on and misrepresented statements I made about RF emissions and misrepresented my beliefs. They also incorrectly interpreted Section 13B of the code. Section 13B is designed for private systems. For example, PGE's facilities talk to each other. We're not going to charge, they don't produce revenue. We're not going to charge them a linear footage charge for having their facilities talk to each other. It's a private system. Another city, I have a company that has a building on each side of the street. they needed their computer systems to talk to each other. The provider in that area, it was way too costly to get the speeds they needed, so they built their own fiber connecting their buildings together. So they do not pay a gross revenue or a linear footage fee. They pay an attachment fee because they attach to the right-of-way. And those services are not for resale. They're not earning a profit. They're not available to anybody else. It's a private system. So they incorrectly interpreted that section of the code. PGE, what can I say here? We all know we have to do something for these guys. It's just unknown what's going to be around when PGE and Northwest Natural's franchise expires, but we do have to do something to accommodate them because they are very unique. Fat Beam, I really don't want to spend a lot of time on Fat Beam. They're not allowed in your city. The issues they raised were not on point. I think going over their complaint would be a repeat of what we've already talked about. I wanted to also provide you with an updated timeline, and you see that here. There's a lot of other things that'll happen behind the scenes, but these are the main dates and the basics that I want to provide you. And I wanted to let you know too that ongoing, I'll be back at least once a year for updates. Housekeeping, things change, PG, Northwest Natural, new providers, new technology. It does have to continually be updated. It's not a one and done type thing. So, as you know, the proposal is in full compliance with all the laws, very similar to other cities. Everybody's treated equally, and it assures reasonable compensation to the local taxpayers for private use of publicly owned property. It reduces the cost of the city, allowing limited resources to be utilized for other critical services. Is there any questions or discussion at this point?
I might have a question maybe for Mackenzie. Mackenzie, could you talk a bit about process and where you think we're at from the last council meeting to this council meeting in terms of a workshop or a presentation versus a decision point?
Sure. So Reba just scrolled back to our updated timeline. And, our goal in implementing this new program is to look at, starting or having an effective date on the beginning of a new financial quarter. So initially we were hoping maybe we could get it done before October 1st, but reasonably enough, you guys requested additional information and the council wanted to have this work session really before moving ahead. So our ordinance effective date that we're shooting for is January 1. That would hit, quarter 1 for the new year. And we believe to have that happen is looking at a council adoption date of November 9th. That's our next, scheduled council meeting. And then between November 9th and the end of the year, there's kind of an internal checklist that we would go through with staff in terms of, finishing development of new licensing forms, setting up the management of the system, contacting known providers to inform them to, get their license applications processed and issued. And again, we would go live January 1, 2021.
Mackenzie, this is Jim. If I could chime in too, Wendy, I know is going to have an opportunity to address the council too, but I wanted to let everyone know that we've had productive conversations with Wendy and other folks over at PGE to try to address their concerns. And the approach that we think probably makes the most sense to just try to memorialize what staff and the council have agreed to do is to bring some sort of an MOU to the council at the November 9th meeting at the same time that we're asking you to adopt the right-of-way management program, which would essentially provide what we would call, I guess, a non-binding commitment, but it would definitely get everybody on board with our intent to address the issues that are important to PGE, whether it be to make some modifications to the code that would address their unique needs, same for Northwest Natural, or maybe we do kind of a limited short form franchise, or maybe just a full complete franchise would remain in effect for those two providers. So I wanted to just make sure that council knew that that was an item that you would expect to see at the next meeting.
Okay, Wendy, would you like to address the issue?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Swenson, and appreciate the opportunity to be with you and the City Council this evening. I think I appreciate, we appreciate working really well over the years with the City of Woodburn and partnering. Most recently, sitting down with Jim and Mackenzie and working through some of the questions we had related to specific energy provisions. And pleased to say that we really landed at a good place in terms of that. Jim shared that we will memorialize the conversation of either specifically addressing the energy pieces that we raised, or we negotiate a franchise agreement, either short or long form. But just appreciate the opportunity to work with Jim and Mackenzie. Bless you.
Thank you.
Otherwise, I don't have any further comments. I think, again, your staff has done an excellent job along with Reba. Thank you.
Any questions for Wendy? Okay, well, Reba, thank you very much for walking us through this in a detailed and informative fashion.
Absolutely.
And if I'm just understanding, confirming Scott and Mackenzie's conversation, like this will be something we'll address at the November council meeting?
Yes, that is our intention, is to return for the ordinance adoption and approval of the fee setting resolution at the November council meeting.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reba. Excellent. We are not going to address the published agenda item B, public testimony for the Allison Way Apartments final decision. There was some last minute discussions over the readiness of that, and we will be deferring that as to our next general meeting. So. Okay. We have a planning commission land use actions. We have a call-up briefing. Would anyone on the council wish to call this item up? Not seeing anyone raise their hand or click on, so we'll move on to the city administrator's report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things briefly. I thought I'd tell you a bit about some of the things that I've been involved in through the League of Oregon Cities, given that the League is having its virtual conference this week. I know a lot of people are discouraged that there isn't an actual get-together where all the networking and hallway conversations seem to really be the best part of the conference for connecting up elected officials and staff people on issues and topics, kind of bringing the state together, if you will. But the virtual conference will be this week. It's Wednesday and Thursday. And I know everybody knows that I'm on my second year term on the board for the League of Oregon Cities. And I know that they've worked really hard this year to try to have a quality event that we can do virtually for our cities in Oregon. So if you're signed up for it, good job. If you're not, but think you can still want to try to swing it this week, you can reach out to Brenda or me, and we'll do what we can to get you attached to that conference for Wednesday and Thursday. I think there's going to be some interesting stuff on there that will be beneficial really for everyone. Just mentioning, I've been on the board. I've been on the nominating committee for board appointees next year. There's 26 elected officials from around the state that want to be on the League of Oregon Cities board. I'm a little disappointed that none of our city councilors are up for that, but there's always next year. to be on the league board. It might be a bit of a conflict if I'm on there, but I would certainly root for you. And then I also was on a committee that we just redrafted all of the bylaws for the league, and that's coming up before the league, I think early next year. And as a league member, our city council will probably see some of those bylaws work. And if you don't like them, then it was somebody else's idea. And if you do like them, then that would probably have been my idea. So in case you missed it, the Oregon Senate, good or bad, reaffirmed Governor Brown's appointment of myself to the Department of Public Safety Standards and Trainings for a full term, where we license and accredit officers, firefighters, and security guards in Oregon. And it seems like we oftentimes also revoke those credentials for violations of rules and laws as part of the work there. But I'm proud to be associated with that organization, and I've re-upped, and that's been affirmed as well, again, by the Oregon Senate. If you were part of the greeters, I did a greeters presentation a week ago Friday. I think somebody mentioned that it was close, maybe the biggest Zoom turnout greeters meeting they had. If not, it was real close to it. And then I hung around for another 40 minutes after the meeting. I know some of you maybe hung out there too, and took questions and talked about the city and things that were going on, the COVID and wildfires and city capacity, and just the things that have been happening ever since we've entered sort of this alternate reality. And I felt really good about it. I've gotten good feedback on that. And then I thought I'd just mention to you also that regionally, a group of city managers and administrators have gotten together to try to start a chapter of the local government Hispanic Network organization, which is affiliated with ICMA, which is my professional credentialing organization, to start a chapter of that here in the Willamette Valley. We met today with that organization, and I'm going to be helping craft the bylaws to get that chapter going. I think Woodburn can play a really important role in that organization in terms of best practices, and really one of the great services that I think is available to us as Woodburn when we join will be recruiting. It's a recruiting strategy. They've got national tentacles into up and coming leadership, and it's the kind of people we would like to have in our recruiting processes in the future. So, and then finally, I just want to also announce a little good news. We were able to, Chief and the police department were able to hire 3 new police officers that will begin on October 26th. This is very good for us. We've been down several positions. These positions are all lateral transfer positions from around the state and the West Coast. Our hiring process is pretty extensive, and I know we talked to a lot of applicants, and I know Chief is just super excited, and so am I, to be back at fully staffed, or close to it, not fully staffed. We still have a couple more to go, but those 3 police officers will increase our capacity significantly. Chief, you want to say anything about our 3 new police officers?
They're just 3 quality individuals. Catherine Sane is an 8.5-year Los Angeles police officer. She'll be joining us. Fabrizio Avila is a bilingual, bicultural police officer at OHSU up on the hill in Portland, and he's leaving that police department to come to us. We're excited to have him. And Chris Longo is a sergeant with the Sweet Home Police Department, and he's looking for adventures and a bigger place to be, and so he'll be joining us. And all 3, like Scott said, will be starting on the 26th. So we're pretty jazzed. It's good to have good, experienced people. All are educated and have a number of years under the belt, so we're excited about that as well.
Chief, one of the questions that I tried to field from greeters, or one of the meetings I had last week, might have been greeters, was hiring standards to become a police officer in the state of Oregon. I have some familiarity with it, But maybe could you talk to us briefly about really what it takes to be hired as a police officer to work in our community here in Woodburn? I think people will be surprised to hear how extensive it is.
Certainly, the law has some minimum standards in Oregon, but our department standards are at a much higher level than what Oregon requires. We require as a minimum a high school diploma, which is Oregon law, but I actually favor candidates who have at least 2 years, if not a 4-year college degree. Studies have shown that police officers who have advanced education are less likely to act impulsively and to engage in inappropriate use of force and inappropriate decision making. So I try to focus officers with some educational background. They go through a pretty intensive written examination. We only take folks that score above 75% or further examination. Then those folks go through a physical agility test that's set by Oregon standards that all these applicants across the state have to go through. Then an intensive panel interview within our department. Once they get through that, the top tier candidates, we take a further look at and open up a background investigation, which is very intensive. We hire an outside background investigator who's a professional and skilled in that regard to dig into the person's background. And then if the candidate makes it through the background, then they get to meet with Dad. They get to meet with me. And I put them through their paces. I ask very hard questions. I've said no to a number of people who I visited with. I've said no to more that I've visited with than I've said yes to. And if green light from me, then we run a psychological examination with our police psychologist. And once they successfully conclude that, we send them through for a medical exam and a drug screen, both based on state standards. And if they get through that, then we make the final offer and bring them on board. And our HR department is intimately involved with us. City attorneys intimately involved on legal decisions, but we work really closely with Mel and with Beth to work through all the processes and all the decision making. So it's something we don't do in a vacuum. Mel and my folks work real closely together, and then she and I work closely together before I make the final decision.
Thanks, Chief. Mel, did you want to add something?
I know Jim forgot just a tiny little bit credit check as well, which is important to make sure that they are not making irresponsible decisions with money, basically.
Thanks for just taking a moment for that. I know I've been getting that question, it seems more often in the last several months, and I think it's just good to get that out there. And then finally, I'd tell the City Council, I spoke with the mayor earlier today. Because of all of the league activity and the conference this week, we're not going to be holding our normal weekly agenda setting meetings and topic discussions that we forward minutes to you on, because myself and staff, and hopefully you all, will be trying to focus in on some of the league stuff throughout the week if you can. So just FYI on that.
Hey, Scott, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, thank you.
So, hey, Chief, those lateral transfers, are those guys just going straight to those people going straight to the street, or are they going to spend a little time with the FTO, or what's the process for that?
Thanks, Counselor. Good question. When we bring them on board, they go through some onboarding with the department and with HR to learn our city rules and processes. Then they'll be assigned to a field training officer for a short period of time to acclimate to Oregon law, Woodburn police policies and practices. Once they go through that check phase, they'll be out in the community working on their own. And at some point in the first year, out-of-state officers have to go through what we call a career officer development course. It's a 2-week course that they can actually take online and work at their own pace to have their certification from the prior state, like our LAPD officer will have to go through that 2-week course under reciprocation to be certified as an Oregon police officer. So not much in the academy arena, little bit of field training that's pretty intensive for a short period of time, and then they'll be cut loose on their own.
Thanks, Chief.
And of course, they're evaluated on probation for about a year.
Okay.
That's all I have, unless there's any other questions.
Okay, Council. Go
I
ahead.
do have a question for Scott. Did I correctly understand you to say that there will be no Tuesday and Wednesday telephone conferences this week?
Yeah, if that's okay with everybody, Counselor, I have signed up for courses. I have staff in those classes at LOC and stuff.
Okay, I'm fine with it. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, Council reports. First on my screen is Councilor Morris.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, I just want to remind everybody, tomorrow, October 13th, is the last day to register to vote. So I know everybody is tuned up and ready to start voting as soon as possible, not only on national, but local stuff. So your last opportunity to register, if you haven't registered and social media hasn't pestered you enough to register, please register tomorrow. And it looks like ballots are dropping in the mail on Wednesday, so people could be voting this week. I just wanted to check, is this going to be our last meeting before the election? Is that what I'm hearing?
Appears so.
Well, Counselor, I know there's been some questions about meetings. It was last week before last, I got a lot of questions about people thought that we had a meeting. So my understanding is that our COVID calendar in this format had gone to one meeting a month, with the work session called at the direction of the mayor or the council as deemed appropriate, which was serving as our second meeting per month. So when there was no work session last month, then people, I think, had thought that was going to be a regular meeting, and it wasn't, because there had been no work session topic. So that's kind of my understanding of the status of where we stand on meetings, unless there's the council wants to change the direction on that. We're required by the city charter to have one meeting per month.
Thank you, Scott. I guess my only comment on meetings is that a lot of things we changed at the beginning of COVID, and I think probably everybody's adjusted to a certain extent in their own work life or their personal lives, and COVID is kind of here to stay for a while. So I would just put out to the council that we should probably take a look and think about that process moving forward, because a 3-month pandemic was one thing, but now we're 6-7 months deep. So otherwise, I just want to thank the public for watching, and wish them well. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Ellsworth.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Swenson. As we were talking about COVID, and we're talking about the elections, and we're looking forward, and we've also been kind of mired in this where are we now kind of thought process. I started actually turning around and looking backwards and looking at where we've come as a council. I went back and I looked at our agenda, and at the bottom of our agenda, we have our goals. The council got together and set quite a few goals. And as I was looking at those goals, I was really proud of the work we've done together as a council. Some of the things that we've accomplished recently, and we haven't been able to celebrate enough. One was the opening of downtown. We have really revitalized our downtown. Our downtown looks beautiful. I was down there the other day looking at the murals. I really love the Dahlia mural, the Pix Theater mural, the mural over on Woodburn Independent Building, our plaza. I remember when I first moved to Woodburn, that was a vacant lot, and we did cleanup days, and the Boy Scouts came to us and said, we can't have our kids cleaning up downtown because they're finding things they shouldn't be finding. So when I look back at Woodburn, I know that we've made incremental changes slowly over time, but when you turn around and you look back, you can see we've done a lot of great work. All of us on the council here today have done a lot of work. Councils that have come before us. I joined the council when we first broke ground out at the transit center. And we were wondering, should we have charging stations? And now here we are 12 years later, and that's the standard. And Woodburn has kept up with some of the standards. I've looked at our parks. Jim Rowell and his folks, they listened when I said, hey, let's make things look like we care, look like we've got pride. We asked, as a council, we asked Scott, we want a proactive economic development process. And we went out and we found Jamie. And Jamie and her team have done fabulous work downtown. The businesses downtown have started to invest in their own businesses, whether it be the Metropolis or painting or a lot of the other work that's going on downtown. We've expanded our urban growth boundaries since I've been on council with the intent of bringing living wage jobs to Woodburn. We've looked at the housing crisis, and we are looking at ways to develop housing in Woodburn. It's been such a difficult year, and we're mired in this. Where are we going? What is with COVID? What is with the riots and everything else? I just wanted to take a few minutes to reflect back on where we've come. And I think this group and the city have done a fabulous job of moving forward with the times. And I do look forward to the next few years as we begin to make progress again in our new normal, whatever that looks like. But I really want to make sure that we take a minute tonight and celebrate the successes and celebrate the pride that we all have in Woodburn. We have worked together as a great team and done some fabulous things. So I just wanted to tell everybody on the council, thank you. Everyone on staff, thank you for everything you've done. I'm looking forward to what lays next for Woodburn.
Thank you, Councilor Ellsworth. That was a good feeling, summation of the work that people have done. Councilor Cornwell.
Good evening. I guess you want to look at me, maybe not. Good, the camera's not working, so we're good. I just want to make sure that the city staff is acknowledged, because a lot of times, especially during the election season, we got our focus a lot on the candidates that are running and what they're doing and what they've done the past years and how they're should be seen as almost city heroes because they've done so much. And I think sometimes we forget that the people running for office are only able to do things because we have such a great staff working. And I know, sure, they get paid, it's their job, but no, they love the city. They're willing to put themselves out. They're willing to work overtime. They're willing to come up with ideas to make changes to make the city better and to take credit. I just think we need to give credit where credit's due. And I don't see you guys because I'm here in my little house on my little corner of the world, but I just want you to know that, as I've said to Scott before, I've got your back. I believe in you, and I really appreciate all you do to carry the city forward in spite of all the criticism that's going on. That doesn't reflect on you guys at all. I just think you're fabulous, and please just keep going forward with what you're doing, including the police department, including you, Jim. I think you're a rock star. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Cornwell.
Agree more.
Councilor Cabrales.
Hi, everyone. I don't really have anything to add. I just wanted to say, as well as Councilor Morris, don't forget to register to vote. But then also don't forget, if you haven't already done the census, that's still happening. So please don't forget to do that. It's very important. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Councilor Schaub.
Thank you, Mayor Swenson. As I listened to Counselor Ellsworth and also Counselor Cornwell's statements that she just, or reports, I guess you could say. I agree with everything they said, and I'll tell you, I'm one proud woman to be associated with such a, a great city, a terrific council, and a staff that is just unbelievable. And I want to thank especially Scott Derrickson because of his guidance, his hiring ethics, his attention to detail, his knowledge of state, city, national issues, and I just can't say enough about Scott. And it's through him that his wonderful team of individuals, and I've worked with all of them at some point. And again, you don't find this in every city, believe me. You don't find it even in families, but this is kind of like a family. And we all work together and we all mean well for each other, I'm sure. And these COVID times have absolutely tested my patience. And I'm fearful, and I feel guilty with being in a house in a wonderful neighborhood where individuals in Oregon have lost everything due to the fires. Anyway, I know I'm probably rambling, but I just want to tell everybody to please go out and vote. Please support the counselors. Eric Morris and Lisa Ellsworth, please. Wonderful, wonderful contributors and dedicated to the city. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Shub. Councilor Carney.
Thank you, Mayor Swenson. Two things. First, I'd like to give a shout out to Mackenzie Grana for all the work that she did to pull this whole workshop together over the course of the last couple of months. The explanations made a lot of sense, and I feel very comfortable moving forward. Secondly, I couldn't have said it better. The commentary by Councilor Ellsworth, Cornwell, and Schaub, I completely agree with them. Thank you.
Right, my report is that just in the last month we had I attended one Council of Governments meeting, and they are still in process of looking for an executive director for the Mid-Valley Council of Governments. And we had our final community center meeting, and I feel like I mentioned this in another meeting before, but hats off to Jim, who has steered this process to its current end with just an amazing group of people that really worked hard to create a blueprint for something that's very much Woodburn. Their attention to detail was admirable, and the process involved a lot of good people from our community in the time, but just well done. So thanks to Jim for that. And it was awesome to see Scott have like an hour and a half at the Chamber of Commerce. People didn't want to leave. People stayed to the end. And just to put that all into perspective, I mean, all the work that the city staff, many of you have mentioned that, the city staff have done. And it's the amount of money that, I mean, Scott can repeat, like total that this city staff was able to obtain for business owners, for property owners, for homeowners, and and just be able to access that quickly. We've all talked about that, how, you know, when something comes up, these were like those all-nighter kind of things. Like, it's a pandemic and funds become available and there's deadlines, and this city staff just churns it out one after the other, all for the benefit of our community. So that's what I have with that. And on that related note of excellence in staff, we are going to have 2 different executive sessions. The first executive session involves the annual evaluations of the city administrator and city attorney. The second executive session involves a discussion of a privileged matter that both the city administrator and city attorney have recused themselves from. For that reason, we're going to conduct 2 separate executive sessions. So first, we need a motion to proceed to the first executive session based on the authority of ORS 192-660-2I for the city administrator and city attorney annual evaluations.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are now in executive session. Our city recorder will be, I don't know what the right word for this in Zoom is. Dismissing. We'll be dismissing the members. And if anyone wants to come back and see the vote following this, they can just sign in.
Are we there yet?
Almost.
It's so much more definitive when you get up and walk to another room versus this city.
I feel like we're missing someone.
And is this
conference will now be recorded.
As a point of order, it would be better to read a motion. If we say so moved, I think there's confusion about what we're moving.
Correct. So we will entertain. Well, let me announce that we're back in regular session.
There we go.
And we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'm taking notes. I'll be prepared to make a motion.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, in reference to the city administrator, I move that we direct the mayor to sign an amendment to the city administrator's current employment agreement to do the following. 1, extend the term of the present agreement by 5 years. 2, increase severance pay to 1 full year. 3, add an additional 5 vacation days to the city administrator's vacation bank. And 4, change the vacation cap from, I think I got the numbers right, 288 hours to 328 hours. Close motion.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a reference to the city attorney. I move that we direct the mayor to sign an amendment to the city attorney's current employment agreement to do the following. 1, agree to 2-year term with a 1-year termination notice. 2, increase severance pay to 1 full year. 3, add an additional 5 vacation days to the city attorney's vacation bank. Close motion.
Was that it?
Have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. I have the agreements in front of me and you have directed me to sign them, and so I shall do so now. Thank you again for this for this process and the comments that evaluation that you gave. Okay.
Everybody.
All right. So we can say goodnight to this administrator and city. Have a good rest of the week. We'll see you at the conference.
Thank you, everybody. Let me know if you want to go to the sign up for league stuff if you haven't already, and we'll try to get you in.
Thank you.
So Heather, are you going to cut me out, or should I just close out?
You can leave if you want. We still have to have a motion to go into executive session. So if you want.
Okay. Well, I'm going to leave, so I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Good night.
Good night, Scott.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session.
Second.
Could you cite the authority?
Yeah, I need to. Sorry, I need to cite the authority one more time. Okay. I will request a motion again to go into executive session for a second time based on the authority of ORS 192-6602F to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Now go ahead with the motion. You can move. You can move.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are now in executive session. And if we stop the recording.
This conference will now be recorded.
We don't need a motion to move out of executive session. We can just end.
I'm getting carried away on my authority.
Yeah, if there's no further business that they want to do, then.
Okay, if there's no further business, we can end the meeting here with.
Move adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to vote aye for that too. Have a nice evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye, Kathy.
Bye-bye. Thank you.